Hi, I'm Rick Lobdell. Welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique, the podcast. This episode is brought to you by the Decorative Concrete Expo. Today on the show, Tony Rinaldo joins me. Hi, welcome to another episode of Concrete Mystique, the podcast. Today I have a new friend, I would say. I think that's the easiest way to say it. A new friend to my circle of friends in this industry, Tony Rinaldo. Did I say that right? It is Rinaldo, right?
Yes, you got it.
Yeah,
Yep.
Thank you for joining the show, man. It's great to get to know you a little bit more. We talked a little bit more this year at Deco Crete, but, one of the things is, we don't really know each other very well, do we?
That's correct. Yeah, we only got to really know each other a little bit this year at Deco Crete. We did meet. I know you're going to ask, so I already know. We first officially met at Deco Crete last year.
You got to let me ask first.
I was prepared.
An avid follower. Got to love it.
Yes.
And I see you're wearing your Deco Crete shirt. I am too.
Oh, yeah. Yep, got to rep
I was
Deco
going to
Crete.
wear my one-of-a-kind that probably nobody owns anymore, my metallic one. But it's a little
yeah.
hot here right now. We're in the middle of these insane storms and flooding, and it's like 90 degrees outside with 100% rain, and it's miserable. And I don't want to turn my air conditioning on. This is the beginning of spring. I shouldn't need it on.
Yes.
So it's a little hot in here. But so I was going to wear it just to show off that I have a shirt you don't have.
Right.
But instead,
you might be the only one who has something I don't in that department.
I know. I think we are two of the biggest fans of Deco Crete without a question. And that's just a kind of a funny little thing for the two of us that I didn't realize until you posted your video about all the shirts you had.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I think I can compete with you because I have a lot too.
Yeah, and I'm still new to Deco Crete too, but I jumped in pretty hard right off the bat as far as following them and being a supporter of them. But I thought that'd be a cool little addition to the SmackDown, ramblings before it happened. If I threw a little video out there.
Sure. I think anything that had to do with helping the show advertise is always a great thing. I mean, that's something that Hirschberger and I talk about all the time. One of the reasons why I like doing these things and then hopefully they kind of post it too and stuff like that too. Because those guys are amazing. They're the greatest people. So why not do everything we can, to show our support, because 100%. They're showing it to us too. It goes both ways. You can't assume that someone's going to show you support and then not give it back to them in return.
Right. Yeah. It's always got to be reciprocal. And, as a matter of fact, I was honored that they asked me to be a demo instructor this year. And, I told Jeff and Jason, if you guys ever need me to do anything, the answer is always going to be yes, because, what they've done for me so far has just been amazing.
Yeah, it's been like that for me too. I've never said no to them. I'll rephrase that. There is one time I said no to Jason, and I hated doing it. And that was during COVID, because we were supposed to come up and do demos, and he wanted me to still come up and do a demo during his live show. And I was like, I don't know, Jason, staying in a hotel, all that kind of stuff. I was like, my wife is I don't know if you know anything about my wife, but she's a molecular biologist at Vanderbilt. And so a molecular biologist is not cool during COVID with their husband in the middle of it, going up there, not knowing what was going on. We didn't have any understanding what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
So that is the one time I had to tell Jason no, actually. I just realized that.
And that's understandable. Yeah.
Well,
during that.
Hopefully he doesn't hold it against me.
Yeah.
All right. So you said we met last year.
We did. We met briefly last year, basically said hello. That was about it. Kind of like Josh, I was a little apprehensive to come into your world at first. I was basically just taking pictures and recording some of your project and what you were doing last year with the engraving and the staining and such.
Well, okay, but to that point, and correct me if I'm wrong, because again, one thing that everybody needs to know right now is a lot of the shows I've done, I know these guys fairly well. I've done a couple where I don't know I've never met Josh before. I met him once at World of Concrete for 5 minutes, So it's rare when I do have an interview with someone that I really know very little about.
Yeah.
But in my perception of little I've gotten to know you, you seem to be sort of a shy person at first. Is that
yes
correct?
That is correct. Yep. I would say I'm an introverted extrovert. I could be either way. So,
It
but
just
once I
depends on who
get
you're talking to in the moment,
just
and you get to know the person a little bit.
correct, and but the industry though, I'm usually pretty extroverted when I'm around
Okay.
concrete people, and in the industry, I feel way more
Well, and
comfortable than
that's
I
why I
do.
brought that up because I remember you walking up a couple times, but you didn't talk to me, and so that's why I
Yes,
brought it up. I thought it was more of a you're welcome to be intimidated by me. That's okay. It's not, that's not going to hurt my ego or anything like that. But, I felt like maybe it was more about your personality than it was
yes.
because I'm intimidating.
Oh yeah. I would say that's a fair statement for sure.
Okay,
But
cool.
then the second time we crossed paths was at Epoxy Floor Wars because I
And I
live
took full
pretty close
advantage
to
of
there.
that one. I took full
Yes.
advantage of your introvert and shoved that mic right in front of your face and made
Oh
you
yeah.
talk.
Yep. But
That
that was
cracks me up
cool.
because I knew that was going to bother you for a split
Yeah.
second. And you
Yeah, for a
handled it.
split second, but it was cool because then I felt like, all right, I could talk to you even more after
Yeah.
that. I felt like, all right, I'm part of Rick's circle a little bit more now.
I thought that was a perfect time to kind of to break the ice a little bit more and go, don't worry, dude, it's okay. I got you. I'm not going to make fun of you. I'm not going to make you feel stupid.
Yep.
I just want to bring you into the entertainment for a split second because you
Yes.
happen to be standing
Yes.
there. That was a good
Yeah.
show. Did
It
you enjoy
was.
that?
Yeah. Yeah, I did. I was happy. I was only able to come for that day. I'm about an hour from there, but it was cool to see because that's not really my world as far as the epoxy side or some of the intricate stuff. I'm more just stamp concrete guy, little bit of flat work stuff, and so just to see those guys do what they were doing and the whole setup there is pretty cool. I'm pretty excited to see how much further that does go.
Yeah, me too. Because I love being the commentator. I have an interesting relationship with them, and it's very similar to the Deco Crete relationship where
Yeah,
they take very good care of me, and I return that favor as much as I can. And who wouldn't
yeah,
want to be a part of it? When they're helping, it's a win-win for everybody.
yeah,
And I think that's a positive thing that I don't know how often it happens in this industry, to be honest with you.
right.
That's a tough thing when you talk about all the manufacturers or all the distributors, and there is a lot of positive in this industry. There really is. But I don't get to see, maybe I don't know. I don't know which way to say that. Maybe I'm wrong. I think this is a very positive industry. So maybe that's not a good statement. Maybe it really is that this is a very positive industry. It's just timing and who you know.
Yeah, it is. That's a true statement because there's so many other companies that I do have a good close following with as well, like the Sure Creek guys. I don't know if you know any of them. Uh,
Never met them before. I'm
yeah,
kidding.
they're yeah, of course you do. But yeah, they're the same. The same. I've done some trainings with them and just very excellent people.
No,
Answer
they
any of
are,
your
man.
questions.
Chris
Yeah,
Becker's a really nice guy. We
yeah.
we we had a we were at a conference together uh, two years ago, and we spent like a couple days together, and we had a lot of fun just getting to know each other for the first time because we never really have talked much. We've known each other for years on social media, but we
Yep.
had barely talked at all, and it was a lot of fun to finally break the ice and have not just a few minutes, but a few hours of actually literally. The great thing about those moments is there is a point to where you have to finally start to get to know each other, not just ask random questions to keep the conversation going.
Yes, I agree. And but that's the cool thing about. I mean, how awesome is it to be living in the time of the internet, Rick? Because
Oh,
we get to have all these relationships that we would never normally get to have, and then yeah, a few times a year we get to meet up in person and actually evolve that friendship. But without the internet, we'd all maybe not so much.
well, I can take that a few steps farther and remind you that I'm a lot older than you when there wasn't an internet.
Yes.
In fact, in my college days, like the college I went to, the reason why I went there was because they were advertising this new intranet that they were running
Okay.
Cat 5 cables to every single dorm room. And we were going to have an intranet service through the school where we would have access to the library directly. We would have, it's all right. It just clicked. Yeah.
Okay.
We would have, assignment. We would be able to interact with our teachers better. Like all this world was going to happen. And it took them all 4 years of college to get it running. By the fourth year, it was finally working. And by the end of that year, the internet was
Right.
officially out. And it was a waste of time and it didn't matter anymore. And everything changed so quickly. They still needed the Cat 5 cables to every room, but it became so much bigger, so much faster than what it was that they were thinking about at the time. It's
Yeah.
crazy to think about that, that
Yeah.
the idea that we had at that time, we had phones hooked up to our walls, and we didn't have a cell phone. We didn't have a video phone. I
Yep.
remember when they were making a video phone and trying to figure out a way to take that hardline phone and add a video camera to it, and it was going to cost a fortune. And then out of nowhere, the iPhone comes out with a camera on it, and it just changed everything.
Yeah. I was. I'm 38, so I do remember the days of no internet when I was a younger kid,
Yeah.
and about the time I was a teenager is when that had started really taking off. And yeah, it's just wow. Can't imagine a world without it now.
No, especially with social media. I mean, even to your point,
Yeah.
that's a whole nother level of where, Facebook, like I couldn't live without Facebook. I really couldn't imagine. I could care less about Instagram, even though I need to use it more. And that's why I don't use it enough, because I don't care. I've never used X or Twitter or whatever it is. I have an account, but I don't use it, but what social media has done for us, it changed everything.
Yeah.
Could you imagine what COVID have been like if we didn't have social media?
Right. Yeah.
What a lonely life that would have been.
For sure. But I'm a lot like you in that aspect, though. I mainly use Facebook and YouTube. I don't really use. I have Instagram, but I don't really use it much, or X either. So, basically, if you have one of them, you're pretty set.
I think so. One of the fun things about doing this podcast too is to watch the trail of where people watch it.
Yeah.
From YouTube to Spotify to Amazon to Apple to everything that I try to post it on.
Right.
I can't see everything, but I get reactions and stuff like that, and I talk to people about it, and so it is pretty crazy to see where people follow and how they follow and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
And I do need to do more Instagram, especially just to advertise stuff. Like the problem I don't like about Instagram is you can't put the link in the post. You have to put it in your bio. So every single time it's like, click the link in the bio.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that.
It's not my style. It really isn't. I
want the immediate.
Facebook. Yeah. But you're nearing 1,000 now. I see. You're less than 10 subs away from 1,000 here on YouTube.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. So we
Look
need
at
to get
you
that.
watching for me. I haven't even been paying attention. That's awesome, man.
That's a big milestone for sure.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, I have no idea.
Yeah, if you have 1,000 subscribers, and then you do need, I think, 4,000 watch hours, but that's where you get to the monetization.
I think I'm past that, actually.
Okay, yeah.
I have to look,
with
but
the
I
watch
think I'm
hours.
past that.
Yeah, so that'll be a whole nother door to open for sure.
Yeah, because one of the craziest things too and we talked about it a tiny bit behind the scenes, but one of the things I wanted to chat, while we were on here about these kind of things too is. And first and foremost, I don't understand how all that works. I just kind of roll with it. Like when I first started recording my shows, I was recording on job sites for close to, I'd probably say 6 to 8 years before I even edited a single video. I just was recording, figuring out eventually that I would get to it. Eventually I'd figure that out. Eventually I would take the time, stuff like that.
Right.
And then I was terrible about editing in the beginning too, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know how to add sound. I didn't know how long it should be. At that point we didn't have reels. We didn't have anything where it was like, if you make it shorter, it's better. Or now they say if you make it longer, it's better. It's so confusing to me to keep up with all of that. But I just kept pushing along and saying, screw it. I'm just going to keep recording anyway and figure it out later. And then I did figure it out later, but I have some videos and I don't know what I'm doing. That's what makes this funny. I have one video that has like 35,000 views and there's no sound on it.
Okay.
And I have another view that has over 60,000 views about sponge rolling. And I get texts or messages, emails all the time asking me about that video. It blows my mind about how many messages still to this day. And that was like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting, I just got one today.
Wild.
In fact, this is a funny story. Literally today, a lady went to my website and she messaged me and said, I watched your video on sponge rolling, and I have a concrete slab next to a wood deck, and I need to match the wood deck, so I want browns. Can you give me 3 colors of brown that will match that? And I'm like, no, I can't. So I politely was like, well, go to this place and ask for this color chart, and it'll guide you with color choices that you can use. And she replied and was like, well, my painters need to know what colors, so could you just tell me what 3 colors to use? And I'm like, no. In fact, why don't you just ask your painters? And she replied and was like, because my painters can't make a decision. I have to make it. So could you please just give me 3 colors? And I'm like, what part of not my problem do you not understand? You're not paying me
Right.
for this. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. And the painters made it your decision for a reason. You're not going to
Yeah.
pass that on to me.
No. And to make it even funnier too, she doesn't know I'm colorblind.
Right.
You know? I'm like,
Yep.
no, I'm not answering this. I can't help you. Well,
Oh,
I
that's
could,
funny.
but I'm going to act like I can't.
Yeah. But yeah, it's wild. You never know. They say you never know which videos are going to get traction or which videos will gain traction even down the line when they've, been up for a while.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So it is crazy. I can't wrap my head around it, and I remember when it got the one got the 10,000, the 3D tile pattern got the 10,000. I was like, holy crap. Someone's paying attention to this because it went up fast.
Yeah.
Out of nowhere, it just skyrocketed.
Yep.
And I couldn't figure out what I did differently. And I'm like, why is that one work, but this one over here doesn't? I can't
Right.
I can't figure out the internet when it comes to that stuff at all.
Yeah, it's wild. I have a channel that I haven't really done a whole lot with yet, but I've been doing what you've been doing. I've been recording stuff, and so I have a lot of footage that I just haven't edited yet or put up. They asked, Deco Crete asked me to be on that panel, and that was kind of a last minute thing. That was not
Yes.
scheduled.
Right. They've
So
done that to me before too.
I was really out of my element there. But of course I said yes because, I'll never say no to them. But yeah, I know a little bit about, what to do and how to do it. But a lot of it to get to some of those levels these guys are at is really luck and getting an audience that's way outside the industry. But that's what I love about your show, your podcast is it's all within the industry. Like nobody's interviewing everybody from all the facets of the industry and solely focused on the industry itself. So of course you probably end up with a smaller audience than some of the other channels that have more like TV shows, but that's what I love about it. And that's what makes it, a really good channel and podcast.
Well, what's funny about that too is my numbers don't show me the real picture.
Right.
And the reason I say it that way is everywhere I go in the industry, people are like, I watched this podcast, I watched this episode, I've watched this video. And I'm like, you did? What, are you one of the 50? And I had to look at like what Facebook was doing compared to what YouTube was doing, and I think a lot of it is confusing for me between the difference between the link on Facebook compared to actually going to YouTube and following it, getting the subscriber that sees the link like you see and then clicking on it and watching it compared to following me on Facebook. Those are different,
totally different.
And that's what confuses me because Facebook numbers are great.
Yeah.
I see it on Facebook now and I'm starting to understand I'm looking at it wrong.
Yep.
Because my biggest influence is posting it on Facebook for everybody to find it and then hoping they go, and then I can tell when I post something and all of a sudden some of the other ones go up a little bit too. And I know that means that they went to the YouTube after that and started seeing the other ones and clicking on them and stuff too.
Yep. And I think Facebook for sure usually gets a lot more, like the stuff that I post, my content on my Facebook definitely gets way more than the YouTube. So I just kind of embraced it, and what I've geared towards is mainly more advertising, client-based tools for my stuff, for my business. And that's all I really care about is just elevating my business a little bit further with content and just staying connected with everybody else in the industry. So
That's funny because mine was all about showing off only. It was never about my company. It was about me. I never cared about. I mean, I did.
I could see that.
But at the beginning of it, I wouldn't even tell a lot of my clients I was doing it. You know, and one of the biggest mistakes I think I made looking back on it is I wish I would have interviewed my clients at the end to show them how. Then I would have been doing it for the company.
Yeah.
I never made it an advertisement for the company. I just wanted to show people what I was capable of doing, and that's all I thought about.
Yeah.
And there was a few times that I would tell my clients I'm recording this one, and I would send them the link and things like that too. And but even to the same point, in the it's not 20 years of Facebook, but in the 20 years of my company, there is only 2 of my clients on my social media.
Wow.
I do not allow my clients to follow me personally.
Yeah.
They can follow Concrete Mystique, but they are not on my personal account ever.
That makes sense.
So that's one of those things that I've always been adamant about, of like keeping it personal and not allowing them. But It's funny I say that. It's not like I'm doing private posts. Everything is public, so they could go on and look at it.
Right.
It's just that they don't, they're not. I would not allow them as a friend.
You keep that separate. Yeah.
Yeah. I always had a separate phone number for that same reason too.
That's a good idea. Smart business wise.
Yeah, it was something I needed. It's been a big change for me over the last couple of years because when I finally retired from contracting, I was so used to having two phones and so used to having that separation between work and personal, and then all of a sudden I didn't need it anymore. And
Yeah.
it took me a second to wrap my head around that. It really did. And
Yeah.
I spent a year with that extra phone sitting in the corner just in case and checking it.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I realized about after a year, I was barely getting any messages anymore because everybody knew I had retired. And then I finally gave that phone number to my daughter.
Okay.
And I was like, just in case, you're going to get messages every once in a while. And she will get one and screenshot it to me. And, she'll never answer. I was like, don't answer if you don't know the
Yep.
number because it could be business. Let them leave a message. I'll take care of it from there.
Yes.
And sometimes I would tell her, reply to that person and tell them I've retired. Please call my office or something like that. Or I've told them, I've had a reply and go, it's so, like I've had a couple contractors, general contractors that became fairly close friends of mine. So I would tell her, reply to that guy, tell him who you are, tell him it's my daughter, and
Right.
say hi to him and say, he'll get back to you on his phone or, answer the stuff like that and
Yeah.
and let them get a kick out of it because,
Yeah.
she took over that for me.
She
so.
took it over. Yep. This is my phone now.
But she barely has that anymore. It's gotten pretty good. So it's been 3
Yeah.
years. So it really
Okay.
has kind of died down completely on
Yep.
that, which is good. So yeah. Okay. So we started out saying that, I barely know anything about you. So what, and not just me, I know a lot of other people that are listening too barely know much about you.
Yeah.
So where do you want to begin to tell a little bit about yourself?
So I can go back a little bit to I've been in concrete basically my whole life. Started when I was 15. I'm 38 now. Worked for a builder for about 12 years.
So
when
you
I
started
graduated
pouring
high school.
concrete at 15?
Yes, in summers. Summers during high school is when I started, and then when I graduated high school, I went full time as a concrete finisher and stayed there until probably 2014. Had enough of that. Lay off every winter in our area, and it was ready. It was time to move on. So I went and actually got a job at a precast plant. So I did precast concrete for 7 or 8 years. And during that time is when I started building my business on the side. And COVID hit, and my side business just exploded to the point where it was time to go full time. So in 21, I went full time with my business, October of 2021. Never did anything decorative. It was just all plain residential concrete until 3 years ago, 2022.
Wow.
Is the first time I've ever touched decorative concrete. And then since then, I just got hooked, dove in with Deco Crete, that's when I really got connected with the industry in general, as far as, being devoted to it. And
Did you know that there was an industry out there before that?
No, not really. Like in my area,
just like
in
me
my
on that
area.
one.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. In my area, there is stamped concrete in my area and some decorative concrete, but unless you're in that niche, you don't really know about it. And I had people asking me for years, do you do stamped concrete? Do you do stamped concrete? And I said, no way. I would never touch that. I don't do that. That's not me. And then I finally just decided to try it. I don't even know what got me to try it. Actually, I think I saw some stained concrete, and I was like, oh, you can stain concrete and make it look cool. And I did an acid staining project on a pool deck in 2021, and then that's what kind of opened my eyes to like stamped and decorative. And then I saw the industry was, oh wow, this is a pretty deep and in-depth thing. And from there, I got into the trainings, and it's been a fun 3 years for sure. But
That's awesome, man. I didn't realize it's only been a couple. Well, I guess I did, because that's why all of a sudden you came out of nowhere and
Right.
and started to find,
Yep.
That's really funny because I was doing decorative concrete for 7 years almost before I found out that there was an industry. I had
Oh,
no clue.
okay.
I mean,
Yep.
why would I know? I didn't even pour concrete. I wasn't looking for it. I
Right.
was just a little artist doing my own thing
Yep.
in Nashville, and busy as hell as it was, I had no idea that there was like a whole big. I never heard of World of Concrete. I didn't
Yep.
know any of that existed for like at least 6 years, if not almost 7 years.
Wow.
So that's
Yeah,
funny. Yeah, yeah.
it is. Yeah, but because of the age of the internet, that's how I was able to find everything so quickly once it was something I wanted to do. And yeah, I'm not an artist by any means, so I love what I can do with stamped concrete, and the different looks I can achieve
I don't
by
know,
not
man.
being
If
an
you come
artist.
take my class, you might be able to learn how to do some tile patterns and not have to stamp all the
That's
time.
that's in the future for sure. Definitely, definitely, because I'm all about education. I'm always a student for life, and you're definitely on the list of one I got to take.
I'll try to be nice to you.
We'll see how that goes.
Hey,
I
I was
imagine we
nice to
have
you
some
about
fun.
that brush. I
Yes,
was polite
yes,
about how bad you were using that brush.
yes, yes, and that came in such clutch, as I said. Uh, that was awesome.
It's amazing how important the little things are in our
Yeah,
industry. And
yeah.
probably in any industry, in any field that you do something, but the little details make all the difference. They
Yeah,
really do. And it's the
for
same thing
sure.
in stamping. I mean, even though I don't stamp, I get that part. You don't time it right,
Right.
and you're trying to stamp and you're not getting full texture, you're
Yep.
losing the little details. You
Yes.
need that stamp impression and it needs to look like that stamp, or else you're
Oh yeah.
gonna notice that it's a little off,
Yep.
and
There's a
that's one
lot
of the
of it.
most
Yeah.
frustrating things. And when I see that, and I'm like, you got on here too late, you didn't know what you were doing, you rushed it, or
Right.
it's
Oh
amazing
yeah.
how I don't know how you guys do it. Honestly, I don't know how
There's
you do it. I couldn't do it. I couldn't wait around for hours and wait for the right time and then get out there
yeah.
and stamp it right away. I couldn't do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And there's even further than that. There's with seamless even you gotta make sure you do it the right way so you don't end up with the end lines. And if you just lay them down and throw them and go every which way, you could see where the stamps ended and started, so that the fine details really really make a difference, as you said.
That's funny you
And
say
that's
that because I have my concrete guy, and eventually I'll get him on the show and try not to make fun of him about this point, but he introduced me to the stamp roller
okay.
to
Yep.
do seamless, and they're
Yep.
made for borders. That's how he was stamping his overlay. And
Mm,
so I would see him rolling in different directions, trying to make it look inconsistent. And I'm watching him going, dude, I can totally see those lines. I
yeah.
can 100% see your 9-inch roller or 12, whatever size it is. I can
Right.
see that line. You're not
And that same
fooling
texture
anybody. Yeah,
repeating
I was
all the
like,
way
you're not
through.
fooling
Yeah.
anybody, dude. You're going too far. You need to go. Yeah, that was a funny experience for me because I was like, dude, there's got to be a better way to do this. But it worked for him,
Right.
and when you come in and do a design after that, you don't see all of it. So I
Right.
had to put up with it because at the beginning of those kind of things, he was doing all the overlay for me because I didn't know how to do that either.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And then eventually I finally gave in and started learning how to do it myself. And then I quickly not figured out, I think we will argue about this when I get him on the show. I feel like I became better at overlay than he did. Not concrete, it's a different field.
Yep.
They are not the same
Oh yeah.
beast in any way, shape, or form.
Not at all.
And he was actually a drywall guy before he was a concrete guy, so he felt like he was pretty good at overlay too. And I'm like, it's still not the same, dude. I'm telling you, like, I think it was better that I had no prior knowledge of anything.
Oh
So
yeah.
I started from scratch instead of taking what I knew from some other field or some other part of this industry and utilizing that. I didn't know what I was doing. I just winged it. And all of a
I
sudden, I was
agree.
like, I got this. I got it. I see it. I see the detail. I see how to flatten it out. I see what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
Because all I was trying to do was make my canvas. I wasn't trying to make a stamp. I wasn't trying to make a texture. I didn't want to do the hook and trowel and make it look like fake stone. I didn't mind doing the hardwood, but it was so time consuming that I would just talk them into doing other things all the time and give them a ridiculous price to do hardwood so that they would go, okay, fine, do that other one instead. I would find ways to manipulate the sale to where I didn't have to do weird textures. I could just skim coat it to make it look like concrete. I hated white overlay. I think that is the dumbest thing this industry has ever created. And I get it because you're adding color to it. If you're adding color, it makes perfect sense. But when people are putting a white overlay on the floor, I don't get it at all. I will never wrap my head around that. I did it a couple of times because I had to. But what it does to your color, it makes, I don't know if you know this, but it makes it more vibrant. But it takes the depth out of it. It kills the depth.
Okay.
It's harder to bring depth to your stain, to your floor. Gray concrete already has the depth for you. It's harder to get vibrant color, but you have so much more depth that it looks better to me, and it pops better in a different way. I like the fact that it looks like it's in the concrete, where the white looks like it's sitting on top and being just blaring vibrant, you know.
Right.
And it depends on why you would do that. Now, if you add color to it, great. But I had a lot of people that were like, well, why don't you just add gray to it? And I'm like, well, then you're inconsistently making gray overlay. Why can't you just give me gray overlay? What's the problem?
Yep.
You know, and that was my philosophy the whole time from day one. I was like, no, I will never do this. And I fought hard on that one. I was even in an article in Concrete Decor magazine. They were interviewing about overlay, and they were talking mostly about white overlay. And I was like, I don't want to talk about white overlay. I hate white overlay. And I told them why. So they put me in there as an excerpt about why not to use white overlay. That's a separate part of the article.
That's funny. But I agree. It's totally different. And sometimes a good concrete guy can get himself in trouble if he doesn't know a lot about overlay, because there's certain things you don't do with overlay that you would try to do with concrete. And the product, the way it behaves is totally different.
I know one thing you don't do with what a concrete guy, and I've seen this many a times, and I'm not trying to knock the concrete guys out there listening to this. Please don't take this the wrong way. But you cannot go to your ready mix company and ask for cement and call it an overlay and put it over top of concrete to fix it. It will come right back off. It doesn't harden the same way. It doesn't bond the same way. That's not overlay.
Nope. But a lot of guys in my area don't do overlays at all. I'm one of the few that are doing them because of that, because they never got a good product. It was a lot of old school people who never educated themselves on the new products and the polymer modified and the fiber reinforced. So they were just throwing down basically mortar mix. And of course, that's not going to last long term.
Correct.
So it's like taboo to do overlays in my area, but I love it because I'll eat them all up all day.
Right, no doubt. It changes it takes you a step farther in the market because of that.
Yes.
And I was the exact opposite for years. I would argue against it no matter what. Every single time I was in a sales call, if I was doing a sale against you, I'd be like, well, you don't want to use overlay because it's going to come off the concrete, because I saw it all the time. But it wasn't because of the overlay. It was because of the applicators. It was because of their method. It wasn't the material. And I didn't know that back then. You know, it took me years. Even after I found this industry and saw overlay, I was always anti-overlay with everybody I would talk to. I will never do that. The concrete itself is perfectly fine. There's always something you can do with stain. I always had that attitude until I finally had to do it on a couple jobs.
Yep.
And I started to not get calls. And I was like, okay, well, I'm doing something right because they're not calling me back with problems.
Yep.
Like I was even dumb enough to overlay over top on an interior. I would self-level over the carpet glue. I didn't even want to remove the carpet glue. I didn't want to grind. I didn't have a grinder. I didn't want to go to Sunbelt and rent a grinder. I didn't know anything about that. And
it's not fun.
We made mistakes grinding with gas-powered machines interior and passing out and crap and stupid things like that. So I was anti-grinding for years, not knowing any better.
Yeah.
And you know what? It never came off the glue. Not once.
Wow.
I never had an issue. Well, I had one, but that wasn't my fault. That was moisture.
Okay.
I can't control moisture underneath the slab that you can't see. So, I had a great success with it. And I would never tell anybody to do that today. I'll tell you that I did it, but I would never tell you to do it. It's dangerous to do that.
Not
You're
recommended.
playing with fire. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's been 3 years of you doing decorative concrete. That's crazy to me.
Yep.
Because you really have jumped into this industry so fast. So what's your next step then with all that kind of stuff? Like, what are you looking for, or are you just happy doing exactly what you're doing?
I'm content right now, but I know I need to evolve a little bit further. I'm a solo guy. I do not have any employees. It's just me. I will team up with a couple other contractors that are one-man bands as well on bigger stuff, which is where I'm heading. This year I'm really booking up bigger jobs than I can handle myself.
What's the
So
average square foot job that you would do then by yourself?
by myself, I did one over the winter that was between 300 and 400 square feet, like 5 yards of concrete. I'll
Okay.
do
Yeah. Okay.
myself. Yeah.
Well, you
Um,
have to remember, I don't understand yards of concrete. I only understand square feet.
yes, yes, yes. Well, and so I agree with you there. Like people ask me how many yards. Well, unless it's 4 inches thick, the yards don't matter. You know, four
Right.
inches thick. Tell me the square footage. I agree. Square footage is what matters.
Yeah, because
But
I
yeah,
can wrap
I'll
my head
do.
around it.
Yeah, I'll do those patios myself. Buggy and all. I'll buggy it. I'll lay it out. I'll screed it, finish it, join it.
Wow.
Yeah, I do a lot solo that not many other people would ever attempt. But I've done it. I've done it so long, and I've honed in a system to where I feel comfortable doing it. But I also understand that I'm not going to be able to do that forever as time goes on, and my body, doesn't agree with me as much anymore. So building a crew is definitely my next step. Um, but I struggle with it because the way I am is I would rather you just go away and let me do it. I'm sure you can relate to that at
I don't know what
times.
you're talking about. I've never had that problem whatsoever.
It's
No,
such a
it
battle.
is.
It really is.
It is, but you have to remember there's two things to that point. The first one is patience. I know you've heard me talk because you've heard all my shows. So I know you've heard me talk about the idea of, are you sprinting or running a marathon?
Yep.
And this is that conversation. In the marathon race, you have to remember that you have to bring those guys in and be patient with them and have that slow relationship with them and that slow training with them. They're not going to learn overnight. They're not going to catch up to you anytime soon. And that's a great thing because you never want them to surpass you because you're the boss. You don't want them to go, I'm better than you. I'm going to go do my own thing, even though they eventually will. It's going to happen. And every time that happened to me, they were dead to me for the rest of their lives, and I've never talked to them again. And it is what it is, even when they failed. I'm ruthless about that kind of stuff. But you can't exist without employees, no matter how you look at it. And you've got to find a way to move forward on that one way or another.
Yeah.
There is no in between.
Yeah.
So the issue is, can you find employees that are going to stay long term? Or is it going to be every 6 months you're training constantly?
Yeah.
Is it going to be because you can't keep them busy over the winter, come spring, they're not going to be there to come back to you because of where you live? Whereas I lived, being in Nashville, I could keep you busy all year round. We're going to be slower in the winter, but we're still going to have work, and I want you to save money because you're not going to make as much over the winter, but we're always going to be busy. It just might be 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week or 6 days a week or, things like that. But you have to be patient with them and remember in the back of your head that you're training them the way you want it done. And that's not going to happen overnight. And the issue is, if you can get them to stay long term, it's going to work perfect with no problem. Because after a year, they're going to be pretty good for you and you're going to feel pretty confident in them by that next year. It's the ones that disappear every 3 months and you're constantly in the rotation of training and
Starting
training
over.
and training and training and you never stop. That's when shit sucks.
Yeah.
And when you can't get out of that rut and there's no way to move forward until you find at least one person that gets it and is going to stick around for a long term and you pay them well enough to stay. It's not that it's not the money. Sometimes it's the ego or the attitude or they just don't get it. Like one of my employees worked with me for 3.5 years and still to this day cannot draw an Ashlar pattern. And it drove me insane, but he was a great worker for everything else. He just couldn't do the design himself. So I always had to show up. I couldn't rely on him to go do it, but I could rely on him to do everything. Other than that.
So you had to accept that was just what it was. Yep.
It is. And that's okay because they were great at everything else. They were a good employee and I could trust them to run a crew. I just had to be there for those important points.
Right.
And so at least I could step away a little bit. But you've got to get to a point where you can step away and let them pour a slab, especially the regular slabs, the broom finish, the stamp is different. And if you're always on the stamp jobs and they're doing all the other jobs, you're going to slowly have that ability to do that.
Yeah.
The one thing that you have an advantage of, though, with concrete is you probably could sub out the basic ones. and just do the stamp on your own and stuff like that with one or two guys. There's that way to look at it too.
That's a good.
You know?
Yep, that's a good option for sure. But yeah, that's where I'm trying to head here this year. Trying to gain some traction there in that area, and then I do want to evolve more into epoxies and even further into the coatings industry.
Well, and that's a good thing for the winter because then you go inside.
Yep.
You know,
So
that is a great way to look
void.
at it. Yeah, you can. It really does help you to try to find more business over the winter. Not that you're not going to do them in the summer, because if the job is there and it's easy money and you know how to do it, it's great. You know, like why not get out of the hot sun for a day or a week, you know, stuff like that. But, you know, yeah, you do need to get on all that, because why not? You know, that's the one thing. I don't regret it because I had a concrete guy. You know, I still did everything. We never did stamp because that takes away from my design. Or we would do a seamless texture. I was fine with a seamless texture. My guy would do that every once in a while, but I never did stamp. I never, you know, like one of my favorite stories is I met with Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood. So, you know, I live in Nashville. Let me name drop for a second. I met with Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood for 45 minutes for a job. I was going to do 20,000 square feet of patios around their house. The whole house was one giant patio all the way around it.
Wow.
And they wanted it to be stamped. And I said, no. In the middle of the meeting, I was like, no, you don't want to do that. And they're like, yeah, we do. We found this stamp. I was like, no, you don't want to do that. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, and I showed them my work, and I was like, look how cool you can make your patios be. And they looked at my work and they said, it's too busy. Like, how is it too busy? Stamp is busy. Stamp is extremely busy. But they couldn't wrap their head around the scale of the image to understand how I can dictate scale for them. Right. And they just weren't into it. And I could not convince them otherwise.
Wow.
And I was like, I'm sorry. And so I gave them a stamp price because I had a guy that could stamp for me. Yep. So I gave him a stamp price and I gave him my price. And I think I charged the exact same price for both or something. Maybe, I forget. And I was 50 cents more a square foot than the other guy. So they went with the other guy.
Wow.
And he started at point A and went all the way around the house back to point A and was 2 feet off of the stamp.
Wow. And that wouldn't have happened.
No.
With non-stamp.
No. Wouldn't have happened if you just let me freehand draw it and make some cool effects for you. And they were just not into my ideas at all. They were great people, extremely nice, completely listened to me, allowed me to, you know, debate with them a little bit. But no, in the long run, I did not get the job, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Yes, you can't get them all, like, unfortunately, and some you wish you could get, and some you just don't.
Yeah, it's a tough one, man. You just never know what people are thinking, and sometimes it's just dollars, and it's all about the price, and other times it's just they don't see my vision. Yeah. And I don't push. You know, I've talked about that many times. I don't push my artwork. It's not like I was sitting there going, this is exactly the design I want to do for you. It was just, I want you to dream that there's a different way to look at this. And I could not get them to do that. And a lot of times I can, but they just were not seeing my vision at all. Anyway, so funny story.
Yeah, that's, I price a lot of my jobs based on what I can bring to the table quality wise. When I get a whiff of somebody shopping for the cheapest price, I almost basically tell them, hey, you can find somebody cheaper. I'm telling you, you can go get somebody cheaper. If that's what your goal is, don't hire me, because I'm gonna be more expensive than the other guys. I want you to hire me based on what I can do for you.
Yeah.
You know, quality wise and experience wise.
Now, are you one of those stampers that when they do a pattern that they like color each tile different colors?
I would like to do some of that, but most people don't choose it. Most people don't choose it. Oh, is that right? Based on
I'm not a big fan of it because
based on the look,
yeah. Well, there's a couple things to it. Not to downplay some of the people in the industry, but I see a lot of them where they only add like one other color. And then you just have this random tile that doesn't make any sense to the rest of the design of the color when it comes to color. or they'll do two different ones. It's either all or nothing is the problem. And then you get
Yep.
like weird, like one tile is just way too dark than everything else and doesn't make any sense, or, so it's either a color combination issue, a value combination issue. And I just don't, it doesn't make any sense to me. So that's something to, it depends on the clients too, because
Yeah.
that's something you can add to it and go, well, for this much more, I'll do one extra color on some of the
Right.
tiles. But then if you don't have a satisfied customer after that, there's no turning back.
Right. Yeah.
So
I only
I
did one
found that
job.
from that.
Yeah, I did one job where I used a multitude of colors, but I'd say vastly I use one base color and one antique color.
Hmm.
And then if they want a border, we could do a border. I do a fair amount of borders where they'll pick a different color in the border, but it's pretty basic. That's my baseline, and if they want to go
Right,
up
of
from there,
course.
they can.
The border is a different conversation. Framing
Yep.
your design with the border is always a positive thing. That's a
Yeah.
different conversation. And then that allows you to have more value change if you need to, or it can just be a subtle color change.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a huge value change. When I first was doing it, we would do a lot of not black and white, but I mean bold value change between the border
Yeah.
and the main color. And as the industry changed and as our clientele's vision changed, it got closer and closer in value, where you were just making a subtle color change. And it didn't bother me either way. I still always wanted it. I didn't care if they didn't want a border color change, but I always hated that. I was always like, well, I have to cut a border. I have to.
Hmm.
It won't look
True.
right if I don't cut a border.
Yeah.
So I'll do it the same color, but just remember there's still a border there. So it's weird that you don't want me to accent it, but
Right.
okay. And I'm not charging different for it. It is what it is. So
Yeah. Yeah. I've done a few jobs where I was wishing and hoping that they would do something different, but sometimes you just can't change their mind on things. And
no, and that doesn't matter. They're paying you. You don't have to
yep.
see it again.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
the one thing
But
about it.
it is a tough part of the industry that we're in. Is we take such pride in what we're doing that sometimes we want to dictate what we're going to give the clients, and I always sometimes got to reel myself back in and say what you just said. They're paying for this. This is their house.
It never
Ultimately,
bothered me that much. Like, and I would tell my clients ahead of time, I'm gonna give you the good and the bad, the ugly. I'm gonna give every angle I can. But when it's all said and done, you're choosing what you want.
yeah,
To the same point, I'm sure you've heard me say this before too, but I want them involved because of that, because they
right.
can change their mind.
Oh yeah,
Once we get into it, once they see the process. So I love their involvement, and I treat it
yes,
as, not that it's entertainment, but I treat it as it's an experience for them. You're
oh
paying
for sure,
for not just my expertise, but the experience of working with me. And I think that
yes,
there is a price to that, and a point to that, and a referral rate to it that works really well, because they're going to go back and tell people that you wouldn't believe how far he goes, and how he brings you along, and he makes sure that you understand what's going on.
yeah,
Because so many of your competitors go, you have three choices. This is all I'm going to do. Take it or leave it. And I'll be here tomorrow to do it, and just do it and not even talk to them and pay me now,
right, yeah,
and,
yeah. I don't
don't
like that.
engage. There's no engagement. You have
Yeah,
to have that engagement if you want to charge more and get them to talk more about what you're doing
yes,
and tell their neighbors
yeah.
and stuff like that.
Yeah, I always make them choose their own colors. Like I'll guide them a little bit, but ultimately I make them choose. I know guys who don't, who pick the colors for them,
That's, yeah,
or kind
no.
of, and I don't. That scares me because I want you to decide what you want and then relay that to me, and we'll make it happen. And if there's a change that needs to happen, we'll address it then. But it's your choice.
And the
That's
funny
that's
thing about
definitely
that too is I wait until after the job's over before I tell them I was colorblind the whole time.
yeah. I bet. I bet that you get some good reactions out of that.
They can't believe they're ever like, they're always like, whatever, dude, there's no way. And I'm like,
yeah.
it's rare I told them ahead of time, unless it was a color combination I didn't understand. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know where you're going with this, but okay,
Yep. It's funny.
All right, so I'm trying to think of what I need to ask you next, being that I have no plan because I know so little about you.
Yes.
You, yeah, I mean, where do you want to go with this? Come on now.
Well, what do you think Deco Crete's gonna do for next year?
For the SmackDown?
Yes.
Well, I know that
Anything?
they're not allowing me to be a competitor,
Oh,
so
oh, okay. So you're out.
you didn't know that?
No, I didn't know that.
The rule is the winner gets to stay, the rest of them don't.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yep. That's right.
Now that doesn't mean that I can't help somebody else. You know,
I
if you want to
heard
put
that.
your name
I
in
heard that
there, and
rumor. I
yeah,
heard that rumor that you may be floating around somehow,
yeah,
some way.
I'm not quite sure what that means. It'll be the first time in a decade. I didn't realize it had been 10 years until, because I remember at the pre-party that Jason said, he even looked at Jeff and he's like, "Has it been 10 years?" I thought it had been
Wow.
9. I didn't know it had been 10. And then, you know, once we get into March, I get all my memories of all of my Deco
Yep.
Cretes.
Yep.
And the lion head came up and it literally was 15. It
Wow.
was 10 years ago that their first
And
one.
you've been to every one.
Every one, and I've done a
Yeah.
demo in every one,
That's
except for
cool.
COVID, except for the COVID
Yeah.
one. And it's going to be weird to not be doing a demo next year. It's going to be very strange.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do with me, you know, because I
Sure
know I'm still
something.
coming.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeff said that to this one too when he called me about it, because I was one of the first people he called. He had already talked to, I think, Crystal and Nick, and they had already said they weren't going to do it. But when, you know, he called me about it and he was like, "We'll find something for you to do. You know, no matter what, you're coming. It's
Yeah.
just, if you don't want to do a competition, we're going to have to figure out what you might be doing."
Yeah.
And I was like, at first I thought about it. I almost let go of it. I almost was going to go, you know what? It's time for the next generation. It's okay. And then I was like, screw it. Like, let's do it once. Let's see what happens.
Yes.
You know, because I did the brawl in the fall with them, so
Yep.
I knew what to expect. I knew what I was getting into, and I did about as good as I did in the brawls too. I did terrible. I still
Well,
got close to last place, or who knows what. You don't know what happens after third place, but I'm pretty sure I
right.
was close to the bottom.
We didn't get to hear those vote numbers, but
Yeah,
no. What was cool though was you opened up some eyes, I think, to some different ideas that haven't been seen, and I think that was pretty important to get that
maybe. I don't
to get
know.
those. It's possible, yeah.
I don't know.
But
That's the hardest question. Is did it sink in?
right,
Did it,
right.
did it really sink in, or was it so far over their head that they were just like, cool, don't care?
Yeah, it's hard
It's
to
a tough
tell.
question,
Yeah,
you know? And if you hadn't been talking to me behind the scenes, you may have a different perspective too, you know, because we
right.
had slowly started to, right at that moment, we were getting to know each other.
Yes.
And you may not have cared as much about what I was doing if we didn't have that personal connection starting.
Yeah, that is possibility. I liked the fact that when you brought it out, you weren't able to see it at first until you were able to get the color in. Like you were able to truly see more and more as it was completed.
As
And
it
it was
grew,
like
yeah.
that for some of the other ones too, but it just became an evolving thing. Now the ice cream cone idea would have been awesome. I think that would have maybe, but I don't know how you would have placed it.
I would have had to like mount it
Yeah,
because it
or
would have been so
drill
top heavy.
through the slab to
That's
stick
what I
it
mean.
down in there.
No, but I
Yeah,
mean just put a mount
or mount.
with
Yep,
bolts, bolt it
right.
to the middle of it. That
Yeah,
would be the only way to have done that.
yeah,
And we'll see. Maybe someday I'll try that too. That was something
yeah.
that Rachel and I had tried to convince some of some of the manufacturers we were working with, and World of Concrete, and this Las Vegas, to do that idea in one of their. I think it was like at Harrah's, where you're walking
Oh,
through from Harrah's, maybe not, maybe Paris, somewhere in that area. When you were walking to the monorail, there was a big platform from the hotel to the monorail, and it was
okay.
big and wide, and it was like seamless stamp, and we were like, this is the perfect place to do this. It's off the monorail, we can advertise it, people can stop on their way through and take a look at it. But we couldn't get anybody
Oh,
to say
that
yes
would
to
have
that
been cool.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were
Oh,
trying, because we
dang.
really wanted to do that kind of concept together. She
Oh
was
yeah.
happy that I finally did it, and not happy that I did it without her, because
Yep.
that was something her and I had been talking about a couple years ago, and I almost forgot about it until this
Yeah.
competition came up.
Okay.
But it is what it is. There's so
Yeah.
many different ways. Like you said, at least I open people up to ideas of how you can
Yeah.
manipulate the space. That's
Right.
more about manipulating the space, not
Yep.
just working on the concrete. There's a whole nother realm to what that was doing.
Yep. Yep. And it might not catch everybody, but kind of like with your podcast, it'll catch a lot of the important people probably, and the more relevant people within the niche, at the very least. But
I'm
I
sure
did
I
just get,
built respect in the industry more.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the survey. Deco Crete sent out a survey on, what they want to, what the attendees would want to see for next year. So there might be some ideas thrown out there for something for you to do, maybe something different.
That's cool.
You
I'm
you could
game.
do the. Have you done? Did you do the YouTube panel one year?
Oh yeah, 2 years.
Yeah.
The first two.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sat up there with Ryan and Mike Day 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay.
yeah. Oh yeah. I've
Because
been on a few panels that stuff like that. So no, they
yeah.
won't. They don't. I mean, unless someone drops out again. Yeah. And the funny thing
Right.
about it was the first year that they did that, someone dropped out just like you said. Someone had dropped out and
Okay.
they asked me to step in. And I was
Yeah.
like, "Are you kidding me? I was in the middle of doing a mural on the floor, which took
Right.
me all the time I needed." And I was like, I mean, of course, again, we never say no. We
Yep.
never say no. I don't care what you ask me to do. I know some way, somehow, you're going to help me get there.
Yeah.
And so, literally, I was in the middle of staining the floor when they announced, next up is the social media thing. We need you up here, Rick. And I'm like, really? He yelled so loud. It's like, God. So I told my guys, all right, do this, this, and this. I'll be back. And of course, they're
Yep.
like, huh? And I'm like, it just,
So you were scrambling.
it was so frustrating. But I had a great time, and of course, and got to know Mike and Ryan even more. I'm
Yeah.
good friends with both of those guys now because of it.
That's
And
cool.
I went out the second year we did it when we were at the place in Worcester, the agricultural center or whatever it was.
Okay.
The three of us went out to dinner one of the nights and had a great time together too.
Nice.
So I got to be very close to them, which is funny to me. And Ryan and I goof about that sometimes too. And I think I said it on his show because he was recording me and I never pay attention to what I say in front of him. But, I went to go get something to eat and there was a huge line and I was like, oh my God, are all these people waiting for lunch?
Yep.
And I just like moseyed through to find out, no, they're waiting to say hi to him. And
Yep.
I wanted to go up and just interrupt him just for the hell of it because I could, you know?
Yeah. I saw that. I saw that on his video. That was funny. That was really funny. You're like, all right, yes, they're not here for food. They're for him.
I was like, dang it, Ryan. But
Yeah.
it's been great to get to know those guys and be
Yeah.
on the other side of that kind of conversation and
Right.
get that respect from them too, So
Yeah.
because they came out of nowhere with some of the stuff they're doing. Well, Mike didn't. He worked really hard at it, but Ryan,
Right.
love what he's doing. He came out of nowhere. It's impressive how big he got and how fast. And him and I talked about that
yeah.
because I watched him go fast. Like we
Straight
both
to
were
the
like,
top.
there's no way. Like it was amazing to watch it from the
Yeah.
beginning. And we both made very good points between each other. We had different attitudes about YouTube. His attitude is do it right the first time or don't do it at all. And my attitude was film everything and get it out there. Who cares? Because
Yep.
eventually it's going to hit. They're not going to stop watching you because you did one bad video. They're going to stop watching you if you never get a good video. They're never going to give you the
Yeah.
time of day. But eventually you're going to get a good one out there and they're going to start paying attention. You're going to figure out how to edit and you're going to move forward. And his philosophy is keep editing until you get it right and then post it. And I agree
Right.
with him. I mean, that's what he
I
did
heard
and I
that.
get it, and it works. But, I want to build people's confidence in the fact that they can get their voice out there,
Yeah.
not be intimidated by if you can't edit properly, then you're never going to get out there.
And you're done.
Who
Yeah.
cares? It's YouTube. The problem is that he's trying to be a big, well, we all would love for a huge following, but I'm going to post even if no one's watching. I don't care.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
still going to post. I'm not getting discouraged about doing my podcast because I have 100 people clicking on it. I'm going to get
Yes.
discouraged if, 0 maybe, but I'm not. I don't care. I look at it on a bigger picture where my family's always going to have it. My kids are always going to have that out there. It's all, I'm out there in the world forever.
Yep.
Like my kids are hilarious. My son and I barely talk at all. We really don't. He's 15 and he's at that age where it's just like, leave me alone. But anytime we go out in public and he knows I talk to everybody and I'll have the most random conversation with the most random person at dinner at a Japanese restaurant. And out of nowhere, he'll go, my dad's famous in concrete.
Nice.
Why did you what? And he would be like, he's a great, and he'll just talk so highly of me,
Yeah.
but then
Yep.
not talk to me at all at home. It's so weird, you know?
That is. That's funny.
And one day he even asked me, he's like, "Are you famous?" And I said, "No." I was like, "I might be famous in the concrete world, but that's not
Yep.
famous in any way, shape, or form." I said, "But as you get older and you meet people and you hang out with friends and you get to know their families, or you get to know the girl whatever you do in the future, all you got to do is Google that person's name and find out if they're what they are doing and who they are and if they exist."
Yep.
I said, "When they all do that to your dad, they're going to be like, 'What the hell?' Because I'm all over the place,
Yes.
And it's like,
Well
that's,
known.
yes, And so I was like, if that is fame, then I'm doing fine,
Yeah.
you
I
know?
think that's better. That's better than fame, is being well known
Yeah,
amongst your peers, and you've definitely achieved that. Um, what Ryan did with his YouTube is he hit it hard, he did it right, he did it thoroughly, but there's also an element of luck to hitting viral.
absolutely.
You could do everything. He could have done that everything perfectly the way he's done it, and just not nobody had it click. So yeah, I think you have to have a little bit of both, and he was there to strike when the iron was hot for sure.
Right.
And
It is timing.
yeah, but
But I
that's
think that there's potential for a lot more too. And some of the other guys out there, I don't know why. The thing is I get why he is, because he's doing it quality, he's doing it right.
yes,
Some of the other guys that are popular, I don't know why.
right,
I
yep,
don't get it, but it's
it,
because I don't pour concrete all the time. I'm not a dry,
yeah,
boring concrete guy finding a way to make it exciting. I don't
yep,
get it all. I get why Mike Day is successful, because he's very thorough with his education side of it. He doesn't do the best video, he doesn't
yep,
do the best editing, but he's
yep,
got that content and he's got that ability to tell someone how to do it right with
yes,
his, new with his Boston accent is
yeah,
that the accent that he has from being up there. He's hilarious. I talk to him a lot. We do talk behind the scenes more than people realize.
okay,
But it
yeah.
cracks me up about that kind of stuff too.
I got to
You
meet
know,
him and talk to him a little while last year.
he wasn't there
I
this
don't
year.
think no, he wasn't there this year. I was looking
Yeah.
for him. Um, that is a little bit of a distance for him to come down, and that's the reason why I don't go to World of Concrete anymore. Well, I've never been, but it's too far for me. It's just I like
You
being able to drive the Deco Crete,
you got to
and
come to Vegas. You got to
everybody tells
see.
me that I gotta
You got
go,
to see
but
my world, man. You want to talk about walking through a day in the life with someone? You got to talk.
yeah.
You got to take a journey with me through Vegas and see the chaos.
Oh, I bet.
Because I've been going for 15 straight years,
Wow, really?
and
Okay.
yes, I am spoiled in Vegas. I have been for years, because I've been paid
Nice.
to go to Vegas for a long time now,
Okay.
and
Yep.
it's an amazing experience. You've got the parties, it's
Right.
you have to do it. You have
Everybody
to.
tells me that, so
Yes.
maybe one year I'll get there.
But I'll step it up and say you've also got to take a day and experience my world,
Yeah,
because it's
for
hard to
sure.
keep. No one can keep up with me, and they'll all tell you, I'm relentless. I'm the first one to the party and the last one to leave, and I'm talking to everybody
Okay.
in the room, and there's so many parties. There's 3 parties a night to go to.
Oh,
It's
wow.
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Now I don't get to do that as much now, because Surf Coat takes care of a lot of. I really have to work with them all the time, but
Yep.
they take such good care of me that I'm not complaining about that. I almost need to go back out there sometime when I'm not there for World of Concrete, just to enjoy Vegas more, because I've got my favorite bar in the country is just off of Fremont, and I
Okay.
have a huge following that goes there. I've gotten it up to, I think I've only had maybe 30 people at one time show up, and that's because like Emil and all the group that does the decorative live all the time are too tired
Mhm.
and to wait till we all go.
Yep.
But I easily got 60 to 100 people that know the story about
Wow.
going to the bar with me and stuff like that, that have
That's cool.
experienced it and stuff like that. It's such a great, just a great place to go to and hang out as one big
Yeah.
party, because we can
Yeah.
take over that whole bar quickly. And when
Right.
you go on a Tuesday night, there's nothing else going on, so we can go in there and just take over. It's awesome.
Oh. um, is that where I was watching one of your shows recently? I think you said it was during COVID times where you guys had the whole bar to yourself somewhere. Was that there? Was it one of the shows? I thought you said. I forget who you were talking to.
No.
You said that they opened the bar just for you guys. It might have been in Ohio. It might have been for Deco
Oh,
Crete.
no. That's Best Western.
Or
That's
Best
at
Western.
That's
Yep.
at the
Okay.
actual Best Western hotel.
Okay.
Yes,
Yep.
there was a sports
I heard
bar they
that
used
story.
to have back in the day, and they just out of nowhere, because we were so mad that none of the
Yep.
bars were open after 10 o'clock.
Right.
I mean, it was like, we just want to have a great time. And so they were like, well, we have this space. And we're like, what are you talking about? And the problem was, then the next year, we changed the date. The next year from that was when they switched to the agricultural center, and they went to an earlier date, which I loved because then I could enjoy spring break with my family. Because the biggest problem is it was always spring break every year for me. So I missed spring break for 8 of those 10 years or whatever.
Yep.
And so they moved it, but the problem was, so funny, there was a sewing convention or something like that. So there was all these ladies there, and one of the rooms, I also didn't know there was a room behind the bar in the middle of the lobby. There was a little room behind there I'd never been in before, and they had that open full of sewing machines, and they were doing like I forget, but they were doing all sorts of different types of things for their little convention, and it was all over the actual hotel, and they knew about that bar, and they rented it out as part of their space to do their different activities.
Okay.
So we couldn't have it because they already took it.
Yep.
So we got it one time.
Yep.
Never knew about it for 8 years. Had it on the
That was
ninth.
the one and only time.
Didn't know it for 7 years. Had it on the 8th year, and then moved on the 9th year to Canton. So, yeah, never knew about it. That's so crazy. So yeah,
That's cool though that they opened it up just for you guys.
now I know one question I've been waiting to ask you. I can't resist, and I forgot to ask Dave Rebello this when I interviewed him. But how much fun was Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza?
Yes. That was cool.
Had you played that before?
Never even heard of it.
Never had no idea what you were getting into.
No. Nope.
That's what I love about it, because there was only 3 of us at the table that had any clue what I was doing.
Yeah.
The rest of everybody else was like, "What?"
There's like a dozen of us. Yeah.
It's the best when there's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I took some good videos of that.
Yeah, with the meta glasses.
Yes.
That was an interesting game, and you really have to pay attention.
Not only that, but then it was always funny to see all the people around you going, "What the hell are they doing?"
Yes.
Which is why it was making me nervous to do it in that area, but it worked out great. Because we're so loud. There's no way to be quiet on that game.
No.
It's so frustrating.
That's a rowdy one.
Oh, it is so much. Anybody listening, if you've never heard, and I always like to say it, I always like to go Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza, but it is Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. It is not goat cheese as one word. They're all individual words, and you got to say them as you flip a card over, and it's just obnoxious. And then, of course, you got the narwhal. That game, I think, is one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, that was fun. That was interesting, especially after a couple.
Yes. And well, the other thing to that too is, people like us that are from the north, because remember, I'm from Ohio. I'm from right down the street. One of the crazy things of going to the Canton Football Hall of Fame is the exit we all pass to go to the hotel and go there says exit to Alliance, 62 to Alliance. That goes straight to where I was born and raised, where I went to college, and where my whole world, 15 miles away.
Okay.
That's how close I am to my hometown when we're at that show. And and so, I'm born and raised in the north, and where we had nothing to do for 4 months a year, almost 6 months a year. And games was the only thing we could do. And we didn't have internet. We didn't have an Xbox. We didn't have that capability of interacting. We had to get together. And so we would play board games and card games and everything like that. So I always bring it. You have no idea. I had probably 6 or 7 different games that I could have brought out. I think I had 3 with me that night, but we were all done after. That was enough. That was enough to get everybody riled up and go, okay, I can't do this anymore. But no, because you didn't play Sparkle Kitty. Like Amel's the reigning champ in Sparkle Kitty.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Uh, that's awesome.
But it just adds to the experience of those kind of shows.
Yes.
Because it's harder to do that in Vegas, for example. You can't get together as easy because you're all over the place. It's such a big
Right.
event. But
Yeah.
to have this unique small event when you're all at
Yep.
one hotel, and if you're not at
Yes.
that hotel, you're the hotel near there, and you're going to come over anyway.
You can get
It's
there. Yeah.
amazing to be able to have that moment in the evening to have more interaction together, and it does bring relationships together faster because of it, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So many good people there. When I went to go leave the pre-party on Wednesday, I took the shuttle over. I forget. I was talking to somebody outside for a while and turned around and, oh, the party's basically over. So I went to go look for the shuttle, and I didn't think it was coming back. But a few random people who I hadn't known said, "Hey, we're going back to the hotel. Hop in," and
Oh,
they
that's
gave me
awesome.
a ride back, and that was pretty cool.
Well, the great thing about
Just
being in Canton too is Uber exists.
yeah, yeah.
Uber didn't
I would have
exist
found
in
a way.
Worcester.
Yeah.
There
Oh, right.
was no
Yep.
Uber in Worcester. There's no
Yep.
chance of that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
luckily everything was walking distance regardless, but still, yeah, that is one of the beauties of being in Canton is that, at least we're in a big city where we do have access to find ways to get around
Yeah.
anyway. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
There's
That
a
was cool.
there's a there's a place there called Quonset Hut. I don't know if I talked about this in one of the other shows or
I
not.
don't think so.
But there's this place called Quonset Hut, and it was what we would consider a head shop back in the day that sold CDs, incense, had cool clothing, mostly tie-dyed stuff like that. Kind of like a hippie-esque kind
Yeah.
of place. But we were in college, so that was cool to us, you know.
Yeah.
And it's still there to this day. I mean, I graduated college in 1996.
Wow.
And when I went last year, my wife, like, I was there I was like on the last day or something. My wife was like, "Well, did you go to Quonset Hut?" And I'm like, "That doesn't still exist." And I looked it up and it still did. And I felt
Wow.
like an idiot for not even thinking about it. And I brought it up to Hirschberger and he knew all about it too. He went there all the time too, growing up.
Wow.
And so this year I got to go there and it had
Okay.
moved, but it was still really cool to go there and check it
Yeah.
out. And it's now a real shop. Like they were selling real stuff now, not just the paraphernalia, but like the weed and
Oh,
everything
yeah.
now because it's
Right.
legal in
Right.
Ohio.
Yep.
But they still had records. That there's no such thing as CDs anymore, but they still had records. They still had a really good clothing area. I didn't pay that close attention to it because I just wanted to see it. I took Amo with me, which made it even
Okay.
funnier because
Yeah.
that is not his world at all,
Right. Yep.
And I'm just trying to soak it all in. And he's, someone came up and asked me, "Hey, can I help you?" And I'm like, "I don't know yet." And he goes, "Yeah, he hasn't been here in 30 years, and he wants to know if it's all the same." I'm like, "Shut up." And so I'm just trying to absorb it in, and then I walk up and I see this little like kind of gate to go through, and I'm like, "Don't tell me that it's like really a head shop now." And
Yeah.
sure enough, I walk in and I'm like, "Holy cow." I was like, I didn't know what to do.
Yes, it
And I'm
is.
standing there looking around, and the guy's like, "Can I help you?" And he goes, "Yeah, he has it." And I'm like, "Shut up."
Oh, that's great.
And I was like, "No, it's not the same place. There used to be 2 floors."
Yeah.
They told us it
And
had
and
moved like 7 times since then.
and you were just browsing. You weren't
Yes.
purchasing anything.
No, of course not. No. But it was just crazy to realize because back in the day, same thing. Like it was just so cool
Yep.
to know that you could go somewhere that like because the problem is, and I assume like what's the population of your town?
Oh, in my general area, probably 25,000
Okay,
in
mine
my
was
town.
14.
Yeah.
So I'm from middle of nowhere.
Yep.
We didn't have stuff like that,
Right.
and I had to drive 35, 40 minutes to go there to even go to something like that. We didn't have anything close to us, and at college it was, 25 minutes, 20 minutes. So no, that was something that was really unique to us. And
Yeah.
like, even when it comes to like music, for example, because I'm a huge music buff, you could only find rare EPs and stuff like that there.
Yep.
You couldn't find them anywhere else. Like you're not going to find that stuff at Walmart. You know,
Right.
you can go to record stores. We still had record stores back then, but Quonset Hut
Yep.
was like another step. Like it was a unique place where you could get cool things and cool clothing, and
Yeah.
and it was hip. It was the cool thing
Yeah.
to do back then for a college student. still
Right.
exists to this day. It's amazing.
Wow. That
Since
is that it.
I've been going there since '92.
Yeah. Well, a lot of other people must still frequent it if it lasted this long.
Correct.
It's got to be a staple.
I would think it's an icon for Canton at this point, but
Yeah.
probably not because who knows? I have no idea how popular it is. But yeah,
Right.
it was pretty cool.
Yeah. So being a music buff, I got to ask you, are you a fan of the new band Goose? Well, newly successful band Goose. They're I guess you can call it a Fish style band.
I have to listen
You
to it.
haven't
I mean,
heard
I
of them?
like Fish. No, I've heard of
Oh
them,
yeah,
but I've never
yeah.
listened to them.
You would if you would enjoy that, you would probably enjoy Goose.
I
But
mean, I
that's
went to
probably
see
my
Dead and Company
favorite.
at the Sphere last year.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So
I would say they're my favorite band currently.
yeah, which
Good stuff.
luckily my kids don't watch the show, and maybe someday they'll find this out. But who cares? Because by then they'll be old enough. But I went to see Dead and Company because I was there for a pool tournament. I don't know how much you follow that part too, but I went
Yeah.
the last 2 years in a row for pool tournaments in Vegas that were at the
Oh,
Westgate,
okay.
which is
Yes.
even funnier for me because I've been to so many parties at Westgate. It's crazy. All these banquet places that I had these raging parties at, all of a sudden I'm playing in 400 pool tables, and it's crazy. And I was trying to explain to my team, I'm like, you have no idea what this is like for me right now. It's a weird experience to be here for a different reason. But
Yeah.
so I went this last year, and I did a last minute getting a ticket to see the Dead and Company because I was going to be there. And I was so nervous about doing it because I didn't know if we were going to have a match that night and if I was going to have to like skip it and tell the guy sorry because I'm going to go. I got really lucky that we didn't have to play that night. The other team I think had not shown up or something. And we had to buy for whatever reason. We had to buy that night and we didn't have to worry about it. So I got lucky. But I'm standing there, at the show. I went a little early and I'm sitting there at my seat and I'm talking to this great couple next to me. And this show starts and she just looks over at me and she's like, "You want some shrooms?" And I'm like, "What?" And I was like, "God, I haven't even thought about that in 30 years."
Yeah.
I was like, "Sure." So I had shrooms for the first time in like
Oh
30
man.
years while I'm at the Grateful Dead by myself in Vegas.
Woo.
Yeah,
That had to be an experience.
it was awesome. And then she was like, then later she's like, "I got some ecstasy too." I'm like, No, I'm
Oh.
by myself. Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
I never touched anything like that. I was not that kind of, I only
Yeah.
did shrooms like a couple times in my experience. So I was I was like, no way, not a chance,
No.
not a chance, not happening. And I'm looking at her like, this is going to get really weird. And sure enough, the two of them were acting weird. And I'm like, yeah, I know why. I'm staying out of this. And
Yes.
but I got to see the Grateful Dead. I got to see them back in '96 before Jerry died, like 6 months before Jerry
Okay.
died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I got to see
That's
one of
wild.
his last shows up in Ohio, and so it was pretty awesome to see the Dead again, and so yeah, I do like that kind of movie. So I'll have to look up Goose. I'll have to
Yeah,
check
Goose will
that
be
out.
something you enjoy. They've got a few newer albums out, newer songs out. It's kind of crossed the line into a little bit more mainstream, but very, very good young band. I think they're younger than me. They're probably
What is
early
your
30s.
favorite band?
Right now, it's got to be Goose. But I have a few. I've had a few through the years. Humphreys McGee was one of my
Oh yeah,
favorites for a while. Yep.
oh yeah.
Uh,
I missed an
they would.
opportunity to go see them here. That's another thing being in Nashville that everything comes here, and
Yes.
I should have
Yes.
went to see them. I'm so disappointed
I've seen
in
them
myself on that
probably
one.
more than anybody through the
Yeah.
years. But then, when I was younger, I would go to a lot of shows. But I haven't been to shows in probably 10 or 15 years now. I just like to listen from home. But there's an app, Nugs. You know about Nugs.net. They live stream a bunch of the shows. So you pay like $15 a month.
Really?
And yep,
I had no
they
idea.
call it. Yeah, you could just watch. They have cameras set up for the stage, and you could watch the whole show just from home.
See, this
So
is an
it's-
introvert answer. The
It
extrovert
is.
goes to the concert. The introvert watches it on TV.
At home. Yep.
This is
Yep,
a
that's-
problem for you, my friend. You have to work on this.
Yes. Maybe I'll go out to one every so
Well,
often.
I think I have a solution to this. I think you need to come to Nashville
Oh,
and
yeah.
come see a concert specifically here for a band you want to see.
That would be cool.
Because then we'll go out honky tonking and have a hell of a time and
Yeah.
show you what it's all like in Nashville because everything is here music wise. It's amazing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
This is the place to be if you
That's-
love music.
For sure. Yeah, that's somewhere I definitely got to go for sure. That'd
That's
be
the
a good
easy
time.
answer because again,
Yeah.
like how far do you have to go to see a concert?
Well, Philadelphia is close to me.
How close is close though?
Philadelphia's about an hour. I'm
Yeah.
about an hour from there.
Same thing for me to
Yeah.
go to Cleveland or Pittsburgh. That's why I said it that way. That was the
Yeah.
whole point back in the day is no,
Right.
that's not easy to go see a concert.
It's not. Yep.
It's 14 miles for me.
Right.
There's a big difference there. It used to be 5 miles when I first moved here. So
Yeah.
no, it's a whole different world when it's 20 minutes, 25 minutes.
Yep.
It's not
Makes
the
that
same thing as an
decision
hour.
easy. Yeah.
It's always easy because it's always that drive back that sucks. It's not the drive there. It's always that drive back at midnight that you don't
Yep.
want to do.
No.
So an hour is still a brutal. You have
Oh,
to have
yeah.
buddies with you to make sure everything goes smooth and things like that.
Yes.
So that's one of the. I am so spoiled when it comes to music here.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I've made up for it for all my years of because living in middle of nowhere, Ohio. Yeah, I'd have to go to Cleveland or Pittsburgh to see anything, and of course we didn't have the money because we were kids. And then I moved to Savannah, Georgia for grad school, and I thought that was a big enough city, but it wasn't. Everybody was going to Atlanta or Jacksonville. They wouldn't stop in Savannah. It wasn't big enough. There
Yep.
was no big arena there. There was nothing big enough for bands to go to. You could only see small bands and stuff like that. And so it really sucked. So when I moved to Nashville, right away I started making up for it. And I've had a bucket list of amazing bands that I've always loved. And I think I will almost finish my true original bucket list this month. This month will accomplish almost the biggest ones I wanted to see by the end of this month.
Wow. That's nice.
Yeah.
And who's
So I've made up for
on
it.
there yet?
This last one is Cake.
Okay.
You ever heard of Cake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
That's just something that was back in the 90s and I just would always have wanted to see and they just never came here and they're coming here and we've got tickets and I can't wait. So
Didn't know they were still playing.
That's the point that they haven't played in like 10 years. Like they're finally
Oh,
back.
okay.
I think
Yep.
they're
Nice.
going to have a new album. I don't know, but there's a very good chance they're coming back. So, or that they're back again. So I can't wait because that's just one of those ones. Like Red Hot Chili Peppers is probably one that I would like to see, but they're such a big stadium band. I don't care anymore. I don't want to go to a football stadium to see a band.
Right.
It's
Yep.
too big.
It is. Yeah.
I'm seeing Pearl Jam again in May. I saw them last year. No, I think it was last year, and they're coming back on my birthday, so I get to go see
Nice.
Pearl Jam on my birthday.
That's one I would see.
And I'm happy to see him again because the only tickets I could get before because I got it. The tickets went on sale in February, and they were going to show in April, and COVID happened in March, so they postponed it for 2.5 years.
Yep.
And I got whatever I could get at that time because it's really hard to get tickets. So I sat behind the band. That's all I could get.
Wow.
And
Right.
then when they came back, I even tried to get better tickets, but I still couldn't get them because a lot of us had kept our tickets. So I was stuck watching them from behind the scenes. So this time I'm sitting in a better spot. And that's why after this, I don't know if I'll care to see them again. I mean, I love them, but I don't, they're an awesome band, but there's nothing special about their show. Now I could watch it live. But the reason why I was bringing this up from what you said earlier, the one thing that Pearl Jam does that I don't know why other bands don't do, and it's mind-blowing that no one else has figured this out yet. You can download your concert. After the show, they upload, they bootleg their own concerts, every single one. And it's $10 to download the bootleg of the concert you went to, including all the times that Eddie Vedder talks in between the songs and everything. The whole show from beginning to end, you get all of it for $10.
Yeah.
It's well worth it. So then you have that double experience of like you get to reminisce about everything. Because who remembers the stories these people talk about? And now you can go back and listen to it and things like that too. So I think they're geniuses for that, and I don't know why no one else is doing that.
That is interesting that no one else has done that yet.
Not that I'm aware of. Because
Yeah,
Humphreys
not-
McGee is good
I'm
about
not
that
either.
too. Humphreys McGee has a lot of bootlegs. They're
Oh,
similar,
yeah.
but I don't know if they do it that faithfully, where it's
They
like constant.
they are they do put their stuff on Nugs. So, but it's not every show. But if you're a Nugs member, usually they'll announce before their tour which shows will be live streamed on Nugs, and then certain shows are extra that you have to pay to view, basically. But most of the bands that are live bands are on Nugs, at least in some capacity.
Interesting. I'll have to look into that.
And then once you see the show live, you then you could also go back and watch or listen to the audio forever.
Yeah.
And the tracks will be separated.
Yeah,
Um,
that's what I have. That's what's cool about it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I like one of the like I'm man, you should okay. Here's a list of bands I'm going to see this year. Not that I wanted to ramble about music, but I can't stop. You got me started, so I can't stop. I already saw Gary Clark Jr. You know who that is?
Know the name, but don't.
He's a
No.
guitarist. He's like a blues guitarist. He was really good. He was at the
Okay.
Ryman. The one thing about Nashville is we have the Ryman Auditorium, and this is the second best acoustics in the entire world.
Wow.
Do you know what number one is?
No.
Would you like to take a wild guess at all? You don't even know concert venues.
I don't
anyway.
even know. No, not really.
It is the Mormon Tabernacle Choir in Salt Lake City.
Oh.
It has the
Okay.
best acoustics in the world.
Wow.
Yes, religion. And the thing about the Ryman Auditorium was it is a church.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
We call it the Mother Church of Music. And it is. It's the wooden pews and the wooden everything. And the sound is, once you go there, it changes your whole perspective of seeing a live concert, because you'll never get better audio. And you do notice it when you leave there. You don't notice it before, but you go to a couple shows there, then you go to a shitty sounding place and you're like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And there's places in Nashville where I will never go again because of it. Like I can't.
Because of that, yeah.
It's so bad I can't put up with it. Just please go to the Ryman kind of thing.
Yep.
And so I went to see Gary Clark there. That's why I did it, because I'm assuming he's going to become very big. And the next time he comes here, he may be too big for the Ryman.
Right.
And I may miss that intimate opportunity, because it's only 3,500 seats. So it's intimate.
Yep.
And there's not a bad seat in the house or anything like that. In fact, the balcony is the best place to sit. But I saw Gary Clark Jr. I'm going to Cake. And then I'm going to Pearl Jam. And then I'm going to AC/DC. That's one I've never seen.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't want to. It's at the stadium. My son is a huge fan, so I bought the tickets for him. But it's at the football stadium, so I'm not going to, whatever. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to, I'm not going to say I'm in order. I'm going to Primus. Again, I've seen them like 10 times now. They're my second favorite band of all time. Dinosaur Jr. I've never got to see. I'm going to Live. Have you ever heard of the band Live?
Yep.
I'm going to see them. I saw them back in the 90s also. I'm going to see Linkin Park.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to see Nine Inch Nails again.
Nice.
And I've seen Nine Inch Nails like 3-4 times.
Wow.
Well, my video just stopped working because I ran out of memory.
Oh, we have been on for a while.
It's never done that before. I keep forgetting to delete the videos. Well, that's okay. I can use this camera anyway. I have 2 different cameras going on, just in case I screw up.
Yes. But that stadium or that venue you were talking about reminds me of a place semi near to me. It's called Penn's Peak. Have you heard of Penn's Peak in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
It's basically central PA, and the acoustics in that building are, probably the best in the state around here.
Yeah, like everybody says, like Red Rocks in Colorado is like some of the best acoustics also for an outdoor venue.
Yeah. So that is cool when you get to go to those places and see a top-notch band in a top-notch venue.
Correct.
But
and they know it.
Is
the big thing to that too is it's an honor for them to play there too.
Right.
So they step up their game because they know it's a big deal to be there. Yeah, that makes it even better. So.
For sure. That's cool.
Well, awesome, man. Well, appreciate your time.
Yes, it's been a pleasure.
We're gonna work on this, and we're gonna find new things to talk about for next time. And we're gonna have a discussion about the next Deco Crete show. Maybe we need to have a preview of the SmackDown, and have our own little discussion about what to expect with these people, whether we know them or not. Maybe we need to do an overview. That would be a good idea for next year. I like that idea. With all of your involvement with everything and advertising it too. I think that would be a good, this year didn't work because I was one of them. And so it would have been awkward for me to talk about myself all the time, because I'd never do that. And, I think that would be a really cool idea for us to talk about, do a preview of what to expect at the Deco Crete show. Because I did it by myself this year, talking about the SmackDown. But now that we know each other a little bit better, I think that would be a great idea.
For sure. We'll make that
We're
happen.
going to start making ourselves the commentators of the SmackDown,
Yes.
whether Jeff likes it or not. I think we should take our own microphones and our own camera and just start commentating on our own.
Put it on a brush instead of a trowel.
Yeah, I did a square the year before, 2 years ago. Was it last? No, it was last year. That was my idea. I was like, well, because he brought up the second mic, and I was like, well, what am I going to put the mic on? And he's like, I don't know, just hold it. And I'm like, no, dude, I got to have my own handle. So I grabbed the square, and then he went to everybody else and said, let's put it, and found something to put it on. That was because of me. I'm taking full credit of that one.
Oh, that's awesome.
see if Jeff comments on that point.
Yes.
Well, cool, man. Well, I appreciate your time. It's great to know you more. I look forward to talking to you more, and let's keep this communication going.
Sounds great, Rick. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. You have a great night.
You as well.
I want to thank the Decorative Concrete Expo for sponsoring this show. Follow me on all social media platforms. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for listening and have a great day.